Even gods love praise. I always tell my friends, human beings, of course, love praise. I've never been to a temple or a church or a synagogue where they criticize God. I go to temple and only they have Vishnu Sahasranama Stotram, 1008, praises of Vishnu. I've not heard 1008 criticisms of Vishnu. Nobody does that. So I think gods love praise, human beings love it even more. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I love it anyway. Gods love it, Voimuntai. Thank you. So anyway, I just thought I'd take about 10 minutes or 15 minutes. We are running way behind schedule for a variety of reasons. Just to tell you, business school is so important for this university, and business school education has become so I think commonplace. And just to give you a sense of the evolution of intellectual output in business education, I thought I'll give you a little sense of history and the current thought. I'll keep this to 10 minutes. This time I brought my iPhone to time myself, unlike last occasion. So if you think about it, business education is the current business education that's offered, this SBM, which is of course the anchor school here for you. All the resources go to business school here. I think that business and all your engineering faculty and others think business school is getting great treatment. The education that they give, the syllabus, that was set in 1960. The Ford Foundation set out a commission in 1960, invited about 12 distinguished then social science, business scholars to look at the business curriculum, and they proposed what we have today. You get the same business education whether you go to Harvard Business School or you go to NMIMS Business School, which are both good, or you go to some other place. You just get the same business education. You get a course in marketing, you get a course in accounting, you get a course in finance, you get a course in statistics, you get a course in operations, the basic fundamentals as they call, and then they let you do some electives. So this is basic structure across. But this came in 1960, it hasn't changed much. Of course, if you go and look at the curricula of various blue chip universities, programs across the world, they always have a slight variation of it. For some time, I remember Sloan School, with whom I'm very familiar, they call it, you've got to have consulting track and products track, and people come up with various phrases. Essentially that. But, research in business academe is relatively new because business education is really, not to downplay it, but definitely to state it as it's just an applied science. All of research in business academe comes from other fields. It comes from economics, and it comes from economics largely importing the econometric techniques, whether it is random effects, fixed effects, time varying estimates, and simple good old, regression and logit models, various statistical models. All these, depending on the situation, time series analysis, cross-sectional analysis, all that you talk about, all that data analysis, data-driven analysis comes from econometrics. And economics is, compared to business, much well-established social science area. And though economists themselves have what they call a physics envy. Economists don't consider themselves great. They, as Bhanumurthy said, they make predictions which go nowhere. They want to be like physicists who have laws, actually. Economists don't have laws. They can't, because they're dealing with human beings. So economists are always envious of physics. That's why they suffer from what we call physics envy. But they're better off than business education. So we draw heavily from econometric methods. We draw economics / mathematics, the game theory. John Nash, of course, came up with this as his doctoral dissertation in 1956 in MIT when he was 26 years old. His doctoral dissertation was Game Theoretic Framework to Analyze Competition between firms, between individuals, and it's a multi-entity. And of course, John Nash never did any work after that. All of you know that he was schizophrenic. His two sons are mathematicians, one in Arizona, other in Maryland. Both are schizophrenic. So his only and the lasting work was his doctoral dissertation at the age of 26. After that, he was appointed as a fellow in the Advanced Institute in Princeton. He was enjoying a decent salary, 150,000, and just going up and down the metro, not doing much with his life, and he died in a car accident. You know that. And for that, he won Nobel Prize. Because of that, that has been imported, the game theoretic approach. In all fields, political scientists use it, economists use it. Partly from that, partly from economists, business education has adopted it. It's a stream of work or game theoretic based analyzing competition, which is central to us. But unlike econometric work, which actually gives you some estimates of magnitudes and directions, game theoretic work largely provides you directional insights, how things may change, will happen, and all that. It gives you an opportunity, of course, to do some analytical simulations. So that's another field. The third field that business academia has borrowed across, whether it's marketing or accounting or finance, I mean all the areas, is economics again, behavioral economics. You know, all of you know Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman were pioneers of this way back in 1970s. Amos Tversky got his PhD from University of Michigan in psychology and went back to Israel, was teaching there, and then he and his friend Daniel Kahneman, they started a series of experiments, how people overestimate, underestimate probabilities. You know, we Indians do it. We have great examples of that. I was thinking of it when I was coming in the cab. So if you know, I came from Bangalore. You know, I came from a neighborhood called Indira Nagar or Defense Colony. You always ask people, how long does it take to go to the airport? So, you know, they of course say it in Kannada. I don't know Kannada and all that, but you know, some version of Kannada. At least 90 minutes. This is my paraphrasing. It never takes 90 minutes. It only takes 60 minutes or 65 minutes. They always say it's 90 minutes is the month. Sometimes, you know, they even say 2 hours. So we always overestimate. I think what is wrong with these guys? But everyone overestimates. Then the other version is you ask someone how far does it go to some place? Oh, the 5 minutes lagta hai. But the damn thing is 20 minutes away. You know that, of course. You know, you're always underestimating or overestimating. Simple thing. I don't know if you noticed that. It's oh, the 5 minutes ka rasta hai, bas yahan se bas chale jao. But the damn thing is 30 minutes away. You're kind of going around in circles. You notice that, you know. So you're always underestimating and overestimating probabilities, events. No, all of us are good looking here. All of us are lucky, and some of us are more lucky than others. And some of you look really good looking and really fortunate. And you know, I want to look at your horoscopes. But you know, the probability of someone being hit sometime by lightning is 1 in 5,000. That's pretty big. I don't want anyone to get lightning. I certainly don't want myself to be hit lightning. But it's a you know, but we underestimate the probabilities. And then you have Sachin Tendulkar. Every time he gets on the this thing, we say he's going to, you know, score a decent score. Never does. He can't. We overestimate the probabilities. You know, we overestimate, underestimate probabilities in all this. Economists always assume that it's linear. But these guys, Tversky and Kahneman, you know, found that these relationships are non-linear, utility is non-linear, we overestimate, underestimate. That's inherent in our nature. And they also found losing $500 is not the same thing as gaining $500, 500 rupees. There are 500 rupee notes, isn't that right? Yeah, I mean, I forget what exists, what doesn't. 500 rupees. So you get out of this damn hall and you lose 2,000, you know, one of the new 2,000 notes that you carry, you feel pretty bad. As I always say, call your wife or your mistress, maybe it's the same person, or your husband or your boyfriend, hopefully the same person, and you lament about it. You know what I mean? But you gain for $2,000, someone gave it to you, you're not so excited. The most macabre example of that is, you know, people lose their kid, you know, they are struck with great loss. That's why poets and philosophers and all the mantra, tantra have you way how to say something right to keep it in order. The losses are more steep. The economists only assume losses are the same thing as gains. Anyway, without going to the nuances of it, these guys looked at human behavior in terms of lotteries and choices. Tversky and Kahneman. I think first paper was in Science or Nature way back in 1973, I think, based on a bunch of experiments, which finally translated a lot of things. But one of them is 1979 paper, Prospect Theory in Econometrica, which was the basis for Nobel Prize for Daniel Kahneman in 2001, I think with Michael Spencer for signaling. But Daniel and Amos Tversky died in 1996. You don't win Nobel Prize if you die. One of the things is you should live long. I mean, say a prayer to whichever God you say. The longer you live, the odds are better of winning one of these awards. I guess Bharat Ratna is given posthumously. You could die and still get it. And so the point is, we derive from econometrics. We derive from mathematics, game theory. We derive, the finance people derive somewhat substantially from mathematics. I mean, relatively elementary mathematics. Mathematicians won't consider mathematics. In continuous finance, that's all based on mathematics. We derive from behavioral economics. We derive from optimization techniques, a lot of management science optimization techniques. We derive a lot from them. And the constraints, these constraints, what kind of optimization, what kind of budgeting, what kind of choices people make. We derive purely from psychology. I mean, how people perceive, how people think, how people imagine, and all that. So those are the areas. So none of them, all these places where we derive in business research, they themselves are relatively applied. If you think about it, none of them is physics or chemistry or biochemistry or math, and they're all, as I told you, relatively applied. But we're even more applied. Therefore, those of us in business school should be humble. That's my first thing. We should be humble because we're deciding on everyone else's this thing. And therefore, for us to be acting very important because we get slightly better salary than others, at least so that's a cautionary note. Second cautionary note is, which we don't understand, which Indian business schools don't do that, is, getting a PhD, if you want to be a good researcher in business education, I know Shamim Mondal, is he here? Oh, thank you, Shamim. Okay. He just came right on time. Thank you. I'm keeping track of you now. Bala Krishnamurthy disappeared after praise. And so anyway, so Shamim, runs the doctoral program in the business school. And he thinks the world of himself, and he thinks the world of the doctoral program. I congratulate him. But, getting a doctoral degree from under Shamim's, he's got an entourage of faculty giving away doctoral degree. It's almost useless, don't tell them. You better get a degree, go and get a degree in math, go and degree in statistics, go and degree in economics, and come and teach. That's what we should do. But we don't encourage that. Someone got a degree in economics. In fact, people are pretty smart. People usually are smart, For example, there's an accreditation body called AACSB. I'm always speaking longer than I should. It's 11 minutes. I have technically another 4 minutes. But anyway, see, there's a body called AACSB. It's, the Americans created it. It's an accreditation body. They sprinkle holy water, whether the business school is good enough. And I'm told that NMIMS is about to get sprung with holy water on March 24th. The team is coming. They'll set the stage for sprinkling holy water. Sometimes you sprinkle holy water and you die. Sometimes you sprinkle holy water and you rise. It depends on, you have to ask the Catholics about it. But I'm not one. I go to Catholic church, but I'm not one. But anyway, the point is AACSB, the accreditation body, which is not a model of excellence. Don't tell this to them. They're a model of modesty. But the point is, they themselves tell you, if you got a PhD in math, we have a program, you can come here for 7 days and you become a marketing professor. It's true, I'm not making up. So I advocated this. So those of you here who have influence, and looks like all of you have influence here except myself, we should think of business education. If you want good researchers in business education, you should get real solid training in econometrics. One of these or more of these in game theory, in some of the math approaches, or in psychology. And that's why going and getting a degree from another applied professor, you get less out of it. Let me give you some, many examples. In marketing, which I know, there's a guy called Frank Bass, or there used to be a guy called, everyone sometimes at some point in life, they become past tense. I too will become a past tense at some point. So there used to be a guy called Frank Bass. He's hopefully in heaven. I haven't been to that place. I don't know how it is. But in any case, he died in 2006 or so. There's something called Bass model. Bass model. You can look up 1969 diffusion model. I think it is called in management science. And he was one of those 12 people in the Ford Foundation Commission. And he used simple econometric methods and simply to forecast the sale of color television. Now, if you remember, the color television came into existence in US in mid-50s, and the sales never took off. Well, modestly. And the big impetus for the sale of color television, guess what was it? The presidential debate between John F. Kennedy and my friend Richard Nixon. And those of us, I was barely born, and those people who got to watch on television, they thought Kennedy won. Of course, whenever you see Kennedy, everyone likes him. All the women like him, almost all the guys like him. So he looks handsome, energetic, and of course, you know that in 1956 he almost died. They spunk holy water on him. Really, I mean it. He has severe back pain and all that. He looks very energetic, but he wasn't. This is an example of perception beating the reality. That's what they had in the Oval Office, the rocking chair. Remember, he had to sit on that because of back pain. If you've seen the movie The Butler, which you should get, Oprah Winfrey's movie, in between meetings, I don't know what Trump does, but Kennedy, I know what he used to do. He used to lie flat on the White House, this thing, because his back and the butler used to lift him. I'm not making up. When I do makeup, I lift on my hands. Usually I only state facts. But any case, this is true. Frank Bass, he was predicting the sale of color TV. If you were in the early 1960s, none of you was born. Some of your parents were born. But in any case, you bought stocks and equities in color TV manufacturers because that's going up. Frank Bass, who was then in Purdue, said it's not going to keep on going up. It's going to come down. This is in 63, 64. Nobody in Wall Street bought it. He had a little back with the envelope computation, little differential equation, which he really drew from the epidemiology literature, how diseases spread through populations. So from that, he derived an analogy how ideas and products diffuse through markets. And then he said, what would be the peak and all that. And finally, it got published as a manuscript research scholar in 1969. By the time, of course, the sales had come down, by the time he became a hero. He did not only that, in 1974, he published a paper in Journal of Marketing Research on how it is difficult to forecast the probability of choices. We always say our R-squares are low, but if individual probabilities, we'll be lucky to predict people's behavior. It's impossible. So in any case, we're a derived field that comes from these areas, and our best, those of us who succeed, those of you know Raghuram Rajan is no economist. You know that he's a finance guy, got his PhD from Stu Myers, who was a finance professor, and he had some very good people. But and his work is not in the traditional sense of, his doctoral dissertation was in corporate governance in late 80s, early 90s on Japan, data coming from Japan. If you remember, Japan used to be a great country, like we, except that they were the immediate past great country. We were, many centuries back a great country. Japan up to late 1980s, everyone was thinking they're kicking United States butt. Even the United States started believing it. If you look at the press in 1980s public policy, they all thought we're going down the drain. But then, boom, Japan came to a halt, and nobody talks about Japan now, And the reason they came to a halt is because of the real estate crisis, and basically their governance is terrible. If you go to Sony's board, you can go look up Sony's board. I haven't looked up lately because they wouldn't appoint me. But the point is, it only has got Sony's people, it has got the government people, Japanese government people, and the institutions that lend them. They all want to keep Sony alive, of course. It's an interest. If you look at United States, almost all of the public, listed companies, they have independent directors, half of them. My friend Rajat Gupta, him, who got in trouble. He was one of the public directors in Goldman Sachs. He had no business to be. He didn't know any finance. He couldn't add. But because he couldn't add, he was a very eligible independent director. That was it, because he was as far away as possible from finance, because he got in trouble with, that's a completely different story. So this is what Raghuram Rajan looked at. The data was very sparse. with 2 eyes. He looked at it, corporate governance. Actually, his interest has been corporate governance. There's a lot of interdisciplinary work, and the strength of our research in business academia would come if we are interdisciplinary, if we reach out to the basic fundamentals. Therefore, if I have a kid, I have two of them now, only 2 years old, and if they would listen to me, they wouldn't. I would be in the grave by the time they grow. But if they would, people ask me, what should I? People go and get education, BBA. I mean, if you have a child or a friend or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a neighbor, please, for heaven's sake, avoid it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's no education. Get a degree in economics, get a degree in math, get a degree in physics, though we may not be able to, because that builds a future, that brings intellectual bandwidth to do research. We need intellectual bandwidth to do research, and intellectual bandwidth comes from basic sciences, and for too long, we've neglected it in business academia, not only in India, but so also in modest schools in the United States. The best schools in the United States have this approach. But we in India, in business academia, should focus on this. I would rather hire a good economist in the business school rather than hire a well-trained so-called doctoral output from one of the schools. Thank you all. You're always marvelous. Have a delightful afternoon. But I want to give a shout out to Praveen and Bhanumurthy. They came here because of my persuasion. They're good friends. Bhanumurthy is a thoughtful fellow, and I've known him for the last 7-8 years. Very authentic, as you would have seen. And Praveen, I know Praveen's colleague or my friend, Sriram Jayasima, for 25 years. And Praveen is a very understated guy, therefore you didn't get it. Signan does wonderful work. I've served on the board as an advisor, and Sriram Jayasima is the founder, who is the chief technology. And their company is a good example. And the founder is not the CEO. Praveen is the CEO, and they do a good job. Thank you for coming out. Thank you all for coming out. I always enjoy being here at NMIMS in the midst of many friends, and more than few skeptics. Thank you.